2015 MLS, the St. Louis Stallions. We are naming the team the St. Louis Stallions because St. Louis is the home of Budweiser, and Budweiser's mascot is Clydesdale, and the male form of this horse is known as a stallion. The sponsor for this team would be Budweiser. I would want them to be the sponsor because St. Louis is the home of Budweiser. I would convince them by having the team name and stadium named after them, and as a plus, their animal represents the team. A sponsor and the pitch can be found on this website on YouTube. The history of soccer in the U.S. In 1913, the U.S. created the U.S. Soccer Federation. Chicago is the home of the U.S. soccer governing body. 1930 was the first time the World Cup was hosted, and the U.S. participated and finished fourth. In 1934, the U.S. would place third at the World Cup, finishing the best they ever have still to this day. In 1950, the U.S. beat England in a 1-0 victory. It was become known as one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history. On that team was half the people were from St. Louis. In 1990, after being away nearly 50 years, the U.S. finally made it back to the World Cup. The U.S. hosted the World Cup and created the MLS that would start in 1996. MLS started in 1996, and 10 cities, and 22 years later, it has grown to 22 teams. In 2016, Don Garber announces that the league is going to expand to 28 teams and considering 15 cities for 4 spots. One of these cities was St. Louis, and that's why I've chosen St. Louis, because of their history. The history of soccer in St. Louis. In 1907, St. Louis is the first state to have a professional soccer league until 1939. In 1950, 5 of the 11 players that went to the 1950 World Cup for the U.S. were from St. Louis. From 1967 to 1977, St. Louis had a soccer team, the now defunct NASL. In 1971, St. Louis establishes their own Hall of Fame of soccer. 2017, possible expansion for a soccer team in MLS and in St. Louis. Here are some notable players who have come from St. Louis. Brad Davis, who is 5th in MLS assists. Steve Ralston, who is 2nd in MLS assists. Taylor Twellman, a notable ESPN announcer for soccer, and MLS MVP in 2005. Tim Rima, current U.S. international. And, of course, 5 players in the 1950s soccer team who are Eden John Souza, Frank Borgi, Harry Kogue, and Gino Perini. Here are some St. Louis demographics to prove that St. Louis can host an MLS team. St. Louis is the second largest city in Missouri. According to their 2010 census population, the male population is 48.3%, the female population is 51%, the white population is 43%, the black population is 49.2%, the American Indian and Alaskan Native population is 0.3%, the Asian population is 2.9%, other races 1.3%, 2 or more races is 2.4%, Hispanic and Latino is 3.5%, and according to the 2010 population, 18 and over is 13.6%, and the median age is 33.9%. And the median household income is $38,397, which tells you that this is a middle-class income. Which also tells you that they are able to host an MLS city, because currently MLS ticket prices do not really exceed over $100, which also tells you that someone who is in middle class can afford to go to an MLS game. The nearest cities for an MLS are Kansas City, Minnesota, Chicago, Dallas, and Houston, which is a 5th of the league currently right now. And lastly, St. Louis' soccer arena. Currently right now, Don Garber, the commissioner of MLS, wants an expansion team to have their own stadium before even considering them for an MLS expansion. Being that this is the case, there are 2 options. The Dome at American Center, which is completely open, there is nothing in there right now, or build a stadium of their own. In conclusion, St. Louis should have a soccer team because it is the home of soccer in the U.S.